Hello, internet friends, and welcome to episode number 193 of Final Boss TV. Slowly but surely, the old intro is still here, as I just brought up before we were setting up in chat. This is from 2014, this intro. But you'll notice something a little bit different today. You'll notice something a little bit different on the show that we had last week as well, which was the Method World First interview. I sat down with Preach, and then sat down with Kona, Narcoles, and Deep Shades. If you missed that, you saw something that I haven't had on the show very often, which is a crazy overlay. But my name is Adam K, aka Bay, and today's show integrates a little bit more of what is slowly evolving here on the show to keep things updated, but the old intro still remains for now. But that sort of stuff, all of that art and all that production, of course, would not be possible without the help of everyone over on the show's Patreon page. Thank you very much to everyone that is supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between. Grabbing those BTS show notes. There are more podcasts. There literally are, for almost every episode, more podcasts. If you head on over to the live shows Patreon page, there are the show notes, there are the podcasts. We didn't have one for the Method World First show because it's like a 2-hour show anyway. But if you want to go back in, you can check through all the different tags here. There are 62 additional podcasts, actually. I didn't know I was up to that many. There will be one after this show if you want some more Frost Death Knight goodness. But if you want to support the show and the stream a little more physical and put something on your person, then if you didn't see this last week, and I haven't done like a social blast for it yet, I've just been talking about it on the show, Fabelina, if you've seen her wonderful art here before, we have a new design that Fabelina and I just put out recently. This is the Little Queen. This is commemorating the Little Final Bosses line and keeping it moving forward. This is a Little Queen Azshara, but the Little Final Bosses line is all over the Design by Humans page. If you are interested in getting any of these, they're linked down below. She also did the Azeroth Days shirt as well, which is inspired by the gorillas. But the new Little Queen is available if you would like. She's got a little red wine glass right there. It's super adorable. And it's up to 7 shirts now, I think we have with her. But, whew, today's show brings back an old guest, but also brings in some new ones, which apparently I'm supposed to keep him muted. But Biceps, welcome to the show, sir. Hello.
Hello.
So you
Am I muted now?
No, you are good to go. You are talking to the internet. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Biceps.
Can you do a flex for
the
me?
Wild Altar. Yeah. Oh, let's go.
There we go. They're covered up right now, though, so you're just like you're just teasing the audience.
It's a pity, isn't it?
Is that on your like premium Snapchat where they get the biceps without clothing?
Yeah. It's on my YouTube video as well.
Oh. Yeah, show more skin, says chat. There we go. Joining us here today, apparently, is your partner in theory crafting crime. There's Chewsday. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hey, what's up? Nice to be here.
Now, you can't flex for the audience, but...
I mean, my dragon's flexing right there.
It is. You're definitely right. The dragon is doing it for you. And then returning from the Legion, there's Hyper. Welcome, sir.
What up? What up?
You still
Good
play
to be
this?
back.
You still play this class?
I do still play this class, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, I'm actually playing Fire Mage this tier, but
I
did prep my DK, but you know, things happen.
I wasn't gonna say anything because when I looked at your armory, as I do, like inspecting the show beforehand, I was like, wait a minute. This guy's coming back on the show from Legion as a guest, and he's got no current mythic kills.
I have one, Radiance of Azshara.
Oh, do you have Radiance?
Yeah, when there was hope for DK, I went in for the weapon and for the Azeroth.
Did you get it, though?
No, didn't get anything.
Oh, wow.
Very unlucky.
There you go. Wait, wouldn't Frost want... what weapon are you searching for?
Okay,
then?
first week we didn't know which one was going to be better, and for the first few bosses, Unholy was looking better, so I wanted a two-handed weapon.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. But today we're talking all about the Frost Death Knight. In each of these junkets, we have to do one of each spec out of the 12, each blast of 12. But let's see here. So I'll go back to Hyper real quick because you were on the show for the Legion Death Knight show. Back then when we did we did Frost and Unholy at the same time, but now everything is separated. So what do you dabble in then when it comes to World of Warcraft, and how long have you been part of said dabbling, sir?
Well, I actually started dabbling like right before coming onto your show for the first time.
Oh.
So that was when I got into high-end raiding or higher-end raiding. I think I was like US top 100 back then. Then moved guilds, got some top 10 kills. Then now I'm raiding in vodka. So just, playing the game way too much.
You were just doing world quests right before you sat down.
Yeah, I just finished. So I do mostly video guides for DK, since that's really the content that was missing before I got into it. I dabble a little bit with the APL, mostly for myself, but sometimes that gets pushed to the actual update. But other than that, I just try to help people out with DK.
Awesome. And Chews, what are you up to? What do you do in this game?
I do some theory stuff. I do the APL as well. And then I leave the really, really math heavy stuff to Biceps. He's doing like a master's in maths, why would you avoid it? I've been playing Death Knight since Cataclysm. But only really got into that sort of stuff, basically late Legion.
Wait, so hold on. I gotta back up. Biceps is that a dig? Or does he actually have a degree in mathy stuff?
I got a degree in physics.
Oh. Well, I mean, that's close enough, I guess. Holy
Not
crap.
exactly mathematics, but it's, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, okay. So then...
I actually got a degree now. I graduated this summer. So before I was just studying, but now I got it.
Oh, damn. So then, Bicep, so these two plebs on the show haven't been playing since Wrath of the Lich King. Can you confirm or deny that you also started playing DK when it became a thing in World of Warcraft?
No, I started much later. I started playing in Mr. Pandaria.
Who are these guests? I was waiting for the YouTube comments. Like, none of these guests are original Death Knight.
Something you have to know is the
majority. All the OG DKs retired, man.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got the memos.
Yeah. If you go back to the old archive of the show, Magdalena was the premier name that was doing a lot of stuff for Death Knight, and you guys have sort of taken up the mantle, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bicep, so when did you start then?
I started playing early in Mr. Pandaria. I played the 200 FrostDK. And then I kind of like, this game, there's only one class, DK. And that's what I've been playing. I did an ult in Legion, I think. Another DK. And that's it.
Wait, why is Chewy laughing at that?
I mean, ulting another of the same class, like, what?
That was the Legion meta for Legendary.
We have tri-spec now, man.
Yeah.
We have tri-spec now. Oh, that's so old. Oh gosh. Classic comes out soon. Everyone's gonna have to like pay exuberant amounts of gold to respec if you mess it. Oh, and oh man. That takes me back. But no, Chewy's right. Back in Legion, at the start of it, that's what the top tier raiders were doing, is they would level multiple of the same character, and the one that got the first like good legendary, that's their main.
That wasn't what I did though.
Oh no, what did you do?
It was just required for split runs, and it was like in the last raid.
Sure.
It was basically you need a character. I was like, why should I not play anything else? Or why should I play anything else when it comes to DK?
I think very early Legion, it was like, especially for Unholy, I mean, there was only one really good legendary, so if you didn't get it, it was like, oh, I guess I make another Death Knight.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoops. But wait, I'm going to go back to Chewy on this one first off, because chat basically has you quoted now as saying that because science is how you can answer things, and we were talking about this before the show started, and this is not stuff that I don't want to hear about unless you're in the Acarus Discord, but there's a lot of wonky math with Death Knight. Can you confirm, deny this?
Wonky math. I feel like Biceps might be better at this. There's a lot of weird things that you wouldn't expect, I suppose, like like hidden caps and Frost Fever, which is completely nebulous at this point and completely hard to understand. And for some reason, they change it for no reason. Like,
well, that's what I wanted to get into, and it's good that you actually said the nebulous word again. Why is Frost Fever nebulous?
Okay, well, Biceps can help me out here, I think, but Frost Fever basically it ticks every 3 seconds, and every tick has a 20% chance to generate 5 runic power. So if you have more targets, that chance is higher, essentially. And it used to have an internal cooldown of 1 second. So that was basically the way that it was, quote, capped. But there's another weird thing that we used to abuse, like with council bosses and stuff. Because it has a 1 second internal CD, but takes every 3 seconds, you can desync the dot and essentially double your runic power generation from Frost Fever.
By like recasting it on other targets or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then once for example, if you proc Rhyme and cast Howling Blast again, it doesn't restart the tick. It just extends the dot. So in this patch, they changed Frost Fever again for some reason.
Oh.
And in the patch notes, it said something along the lines of, will now diminish beyond 1 target. And you're like, okay, so I guess it'll be worse than AoE now. Which is, that's what we went into it with, and then we checked it with some turnip abuse, which Biceps can explain.
Yeah.
And it turns out, no, it actually is improved, which is,
Wait.
They removed the internal cooldown basically, and increased the chance to therapy.
The classic switcheroo when they say they nerf something, but it's actually a buff.
Chat. Don't tell Zorbrix. Bicep, what? So all this stuff, right? This whole thing is a segue into what kind of resources are out there that players should be aware of if they're not, or just to pinpoint where everything gets coagulated for Frost Death Knight. And there's something that you write. I'm looking at this thing over here on this website called Woohead. Oh, Wowhead. What's this?
Never heard of it.
I'm the Frost author. I started writing for Wowhead at the BFA pre-patch, and I've continued to do so. Also, I got this specific section in the guide, which I specifically target these kind of integrate weird things that happen with Frost, which you can read about the Frost Fever stuff, or the previous Frost Fever stuff. I had to remove that now; they changed it, annoyingly. But there's also video guides out there. Hyperion, have you done any Frost video guides?
My Frost guide is coming out on Tuesday.
Oh, look at that! New Frost guide.
Terrific timing.
Yeah. Other than that, I would recommend the Acros Discord. I think I spend way too much time in there. And, whenever there's someone that just wants to ask a question, we're always ready. Happy to help. Also, always happy to discuss new things. Quite often people notice things, they see things that we can't see, and it always helps out to improve the, maybe there's a fix in the APL that needs to be done. Maybe there's a trinket that we haven't really considered properly.
Mm-hmm.
All those kind of things, they come from the community, and it helps a lot when you need to figure stuff out what's best.
Yeah, do you have any other plugs or shout outs you need to give to honorable mentions that are out there that are doing things and helping you guys out curate and create all of the stuff that you put out for the
shout out for our simulation craft dev, it's Melikas. He does a lot of the back-end coding, putting in the new abilities, all that. He also the guy that approves your pull requests. He's a big guy. And there's also that helps out with the free crafting, and he does the APL stuff as well. Like generally, it's a big shout out to community, I think, because it's like I feel like whenever I write guides, it's a collaborative effort. I always ask people, see what they think, because I feel like I don't know the correct answer. It's always better to discuss with everyone else playing. Just a big shout out to those guys.
That's awesome. Hyper, do you have anyone you want to give any shout outs to? I mean, you read. I'm pretty sure in the guild you're in, there is at least 2 people you need to give shout outs to, because if you don't, you're going to get hazed later on in guild tonight. So if you need to, this is your time.
You put me on the spot like that. Who am I supposed to shout out from my guild?
I'm just making sure.
My code DK, Sistara.
There you go.
But no, the biggest shout out is to the community. I get asked a lot of questions where I don't know the answer to them, and that really makes me just, go find the answer to it, which is how I end up learning a lot of the stuff myself. And whenever you have that many people playing a single spec and just asking questions and trying out new stuff, you just end up finding out like cool things. And that's probably the DK Discord, this biggest strength. Whenever you have that many players just like talking about stuff, you just figure things out. And that's awesome.
And then Chewy, last but not least, do you have anyone you want to thank or shout out real quick?
I would definitely, well, the two guys I'm with, but also I would definitely want to reiterate Zoe and Malek, they're invaluable. And like, Malek has added some options during the PTR cycle when we had like 3 variations of fixes to breath. And like some of them are quite difficult to understand. And he added options to sort of check how it would affect downtime and stuff, and that was really helpful for us. Just so we could see like, these changes might not be as good as some other changes. Apart from that, I guess shout out everyone in the Discord. There's like a lot of people there now, and it's super interesting conversations and stuff.
You said there's a lot of people in there. How many people in the Acarus Discord right now? Because out of the top 15 Discord servers in the world, World of Warcraft Discord servers are somewhere in like 8 or 9 or 10 of those top 15 still.
I think it's like 60,000, but like every time banter at everyone's, it's like it drops 5.
Oh. Yeah, I at here in my Discord to ask people if they have questions about upcoming shows, and like immediately 2-3 people leave. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, the whole point of this channel is so you can ask questions for my shows, and you just leave when I at you. It's like, I get it, yeah. Even though you could mute the channel and then just see the red number 1, whatever. But all right, so first things first, the first piece of business we have to get to, Biceps. Give it to me straight for myself, those listening, and everyone that's watching right now in the audience. Community perception and performance. How is the Frost Death Knight, and how is that impending on this Tuesday, 5% or above, Pepe Hands, going to change things, if at all?
Yeah, so I think regarding perception, it's not good. I think if you ask the majority of players and you say you're FrostDK, they're going to laugh at you and call you a wheelchair. And I feel that kind of, that is the perception. Most people don't think FrostDKs are good. They think they have little utility. They don't feel like they can do good damage. You see it on the forums as well. People show they're like, the worst class. I feel like generally people always overvalue and, undervalue how good a class is. I think Frost is completely fine. It can do well in its niche, and it does, rather well in the raid. The fact that Noga ran a FrostDK on the world first kill is probably a huge boost to the perception of FrostDKs. Because usually you think that, world first raiders, they're not going to bring a class that isn't seen very much, and then they do, and they're like, oh, maybe this is actually good. And I think, FrostDK is absolutely fine. It's also so much better now that they fixed the resource problem. It plays much better. All day it was amazing. You had these, 2-minute ads coming in. You could bet from them, all that. It's just loads of damage. Don't really do that well in the raid with regards to ads, but we do fine. And with the resource changes, it's not like sleeper mode anymore. That's good.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce over real quick here to the 95th percentile statistics page over here on Warcraft logs, because this is what I have to reference a lot to put in perspective a few times on the stream, is that this is all bosses right now in Azshara's Eternal Palace on Mythic, and the 95th percentile is basically going to be whereabouts you're going to see that players are hitting their sim goals. 99th percentile and max is usually those that are just cheesing stuff right now. There's a big prevalent thing with stacking Loyal to the End on only like 3 or 4 people in your group, and then having a shaman brick and onk and then brick again to like keep, and it's generate. It's for parsing people. It's not a big deal. But 95th percentile or 90th percentile just sort of seems people just like they're doing the damnedest. And if you take out the outlier right here of Shadow Priest at 95%, Frost is only, what is that, 12-ish% behind the top, and the 5% hits on Tuesday. So not really that big of a deal. Within 10 or 12%, really not that big. You're 10% behind the really high-end Fury Warrior right now, which definitely popped off. So
it's always important when you look at these to also realize you got buyers here, because you got the good build, the good guilds. They're gonna funnel gear into specific classes, specific players. They're gonna try to get gear onto good classes.
Yeah.
And there's probably not going to be a lot of FrostDKs there, and that kind of skews the statistics that you get. The good classes will have better gear than the not meta classes generally.
sure.
Yeah.
It's also but we're quite at the bottom, but for absolute majority of content, we're fine.
I think
That's always what I say.
the final 2 bosses are where Frost really shines. It looks really bad overall, but those are the 2 most important bosses, arguably. So
Right.
the fact that we're getting a buff, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Buff is also a bit you have to take into consideration. It's not a straight 5% buff because since it's a aura buff. I don't know if they actually did a 5% aura buff or they did 5% aura buff. It doesn't matter because we don't have a lot of the aura buff has like close to 0 in value, but sometimes that actually skews it a little bit. Anyway, it doesn't affect white auto attacks. It doesn't affect essences, and it doesn't affect trinkets, which brings it around to 4% single target buff ish. But that's still nice.
Yeah, no, it should be a nice little bump. It's weird because they, in the updated coming patch here on the Chewsday hotfix, it's just any of the specs that they saw that were underperforming a little bit, they all just got a 5%. But then some need more than others, but then the 5% affects others more than others. So it'll be strange. It'll take like a week everyone to sort itself out and figure. But that's the one thing I want to make sure. And you mentioned it. Yeah, aura buff does not affect essences, obviously. It does not affect any of your traits. It doesn't affect any of your auto attack oriented stuff. And then it doesn't affect trinkets. It just affects your abilities on the class.
Yeah. I really wish they did more like pinpoint buffs. But that obviously requires more knowledge of each spec and how to buff it.
Right.
Instead of these like blanket buffs. But yeah, take the buff wherever we can get it, I guess.
I think something that's gone unsaid so far is for Mythic Plus, for example, Outlaw just got nerfed, and Frost and Holy both got buffed, and those specs are not terrible damage. They just lack utility, really. And I think that'll, we'll see. But I guess next week, Cup, etc., I think we'll see probably some Death Knights, to be honest.
Oh, you're saying NDI?
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that if you're not following this as well, on Tuesday when these 5% auras go in for a handful of specs, Outlaw Rogues are getting cut down again. Their Sinister Strike trait is being cut down a bit, and their Blade Flurry damage, nonsense circle of stupid butt AoE is also getting cut down a bit. So if you're not seeing, NDI right now is running a lot of like 2 to 3 Outlaw Rogues, even though there's been a few. There was like a Fire Mage last night. There was a Windwalker. So there's some, but those teams aren't winning. So
yeah.
Meanwhile, Unholy AoE untouched, buffed, in fact.
Yeah. So Tuesday we might see something shift slightly, and I like how you bring up Unholy because you took my AoE.
Oh, Fire Nova. Yeah. Unlucky.
Pity.
It happens.
Oh, it does it? Yeah. And then Subtlety Rogue also took my AoE. So
I mean, they yoinked our Purge and gave it to Demon Hunters. So
they did. Havoc's my main ult. I don't think we needed it. I think DK should have kept it, but yeah. Oh well. Because they also took away, your Dark Simulacrum is gone. That was poofed. But that's the one thing I wanted to highlight. All the great little nuggets that the Frosty Boys bring to the table, specifically in this case. And Chewy, you brought up a little bit of it. Do you have anything else you want to add for like the raids, Mythic Plus, even potentially if any of you do any PvP? Like what is brought that is unique and fun and awesome about Frost Death Knights right now?
I mean, unique, obviously Death Grip. That's the thing that's lasted forever. I would say one thing that's irritating about Death Grip now, though, is it's on the GCD. It's like, why? Unique. This is a problem with FrostDK, especially, is there isn't that much, to be honest. Like, it's DPS, like it's a DPS class, and this is a problem in BOD is if it's not optimal or not the best, it just gets outshined by other classes. And like it does have some utility. You know, it has Chains of Ice, except then you have that problem. We run a talent called Cold Heart, which essentially means you can't use your Chains of Ice as a snare anymore. It's just like, why? And then we have our Stun, which is now a talent. You know, you used to get Strangulate, which it replaced, so you had a Silence, but that's gone now. I guess it's what yeah, you were asking, what does it bring that's good, but
It does
What
have
is
the AoE drop kind of thing.
Yeah,
Right.
what is the... My chat was talking the other day about how, like, Frost Death Knights and Mythic Plus, and you, like, joke about Unholy DK and Mythic Plus in that sense. That's a huge part of the game right now. What is the nonsense, like, bouncing frost ball of AoE doom that you guys bring right now? What is
Chill
that?
Streak.
Chill streak.
So there's
Ah,
a talent, sorry, a PvP talent called Chill Streak, which used to do percentage damage. I think it was 10% per bounce. And it's snared by 70% on every bounce. It bounced 9 times, so 10 hits. It does absolutely obnoxious damage. It does like total 1000% attack power, which is insane.
I think it's something like
Obviously-
40k per hit, isn't it?
Yeah, and they changed it obviously from percent HP to attack power, which means it gets buffed by Pillar, Mastery, you know, everything.
yep.
And obviously it caps at 2 targets effectively because, you know, it just bounces between targets. So I could imagine a boss coming up, which is, you know, 2 targets stacked. It'll probably be quite devastating.
It's like a 400k hit on
It's also
4
a
or 5
really
second
low
cooldown.
cooldown. Yeah,
It's a minute
like
long cooldown.
it's like 5 cold hearts.
Or 45 seconds, sorry. 45, yeah. Oh, gosh. Ketsu's in chat. Don't talk about her. It's okay. Stop talking about her. Yeah. It's no meme beam, but...
Then I suppose another PvP talent that's also quite good. If Frost was actually played in Arena, I play Unholy in Arena, but if Frost was played in Arena, Heartstop Aura has some interesting interactions. Because in PvP, you essentially want to sync defensive cooldowns with offensive cooldowns. And Heartstop Aura just desyncs your enemy's defensive from your offensives. So it's super good. If Frost was good, like for the rest of it.
I think that's one thing you couldn't say about Death Knight is, especially since I think it was 8.1 where they revamped PvP talents. Like Death Knight has really cool talents for PvP.
Yeah, Death Knight has probably some of the best PvP talents out of the specs that I play, or classes that I play.
It is neat stuff. It always comes down to, obviously, in like a min-maxing cycle, it comes down to numbers most of the time. But then if you're not aiming for that like top 100 or like huge Mythic Plus keys, which we'll see though. If the MDI all of a sudden splashes in Death Knights or changes up the meta from all this rogue BS right now we're seeing, we don't know. Then everything changes on a dime on Tuesday. Like the first teams that do Mythic Plus stuff on the MDI on this weekend coming up, and it's like, oh, rogues are out. You know, X, Y, and Z is in. Oh, they're the best in the game right now. It'll switch just like that.
I think it's, well, you're still going to see one rogue at least.
Yeah.
Because they didn't hit their utility, which is...
Oh, of course. Shroud.
Which is what
The
made them a staple.
MDI is also kind of weird because on live you aim to push keys. You don't try to speedrun keys as much, I feel like. So for pushing keys, typically you kind of have a different spec meta than what the MDI meta is.
Right.
I don't really do Mythic Plus that much because I haven't enjoyed this expansion, but typically it changes a little bit when you try to go for those highest keys.
Yeah.
There was something else that I wanted to make sure we highlight here, and this might just be... Is this just a FrostDK thing? You brought up in the beginning of when we were setting up to make sure the whole anti-magic shell, HP squish, runic barrier thing.
Ooh.
So I don't know who wants this one. I'm just gonna back away from the screen. Who
Should I
wants
take it?
Go for it.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Jimmy.
Okay, I'll try and, like, I think I described this badly before, but, so...
Right.
Basically, you have Anti-Magic Shell, which is 30% of your HP as a absorption shield. We have these, right, so on a boss like Restless Cabal or Azshara, you have abilities that reduce your maximum HP, which reduces Anti-Magic Shell as well. But we have a trait called Runic Barrier, which is basically a flat increase to Anti-Magic Shell. And it's because of the way that Anti-Magic Shell generates Runic Power, it generates like 0.83 runic power per percent of your HP in the absorber. When you have runic barrier and reduced max HP, your anti-magic shell is larger than your max HP. So basically every point of that absorb is, you know, you generate hundreds of runic power because your shell is bigger than your HP. And every effective percent of your HP gives you pointy everywhere. It's quite hard to describe, I guess, but
It's good for Azshara though.
it's
Because
really good for Brad.
And
bring
it's
that
not
big.
not unique to Frost, but obviously has a bigger impact on Frost because of the Breath of Sindragosa interaction. Whereas for Unholy, you still get that big chunk of runic power, but you don't really get that much benefit from that extra runic power.
Right. Because there's no way to like funnel it the same. It's just like, oh, death coil.
Yeah, it's just some like you get 2 extra death coils.
If Gargle's good, it could be good, but you know, Gargle is absolutely horrendous. So
If anything, it's just annoying as Unholy. Like,
Gotcha. So then, all right. So Hyper, let's go back to the frozen roots, as it were, or at least as far back as you can. Then we can bounce around to the other guests, of course. But I mean, chat can help with this. YouTube comments can help with this. They can reminisce on their best memories or worst fears from previous expansions. But we've had Death Knight since Wrath, when they became the first hero class in the game. Wrath to Canada Mop to Warlords to Legion, now to BFA, and then, of course, to Black Empire or wherever we're going in 9.0 in the future. But what do you think of the journey, that dev journey of the Death Knight as a class? Like, what drew you to it? Like, the good, the bad, the unfortunate, the ugly? Why do you still play it today? Walk me through that. What do you think?
Okay, well, I only started playing Death Knight in HFC, and HFC and EN, I was, super casual. But I started playing DK. I don't know. I just made the class that I started. Honestly, when I started, I didn't want to level all the way, and DK has super easy leveling, so I wanted to skip some levels. And then I just got drawn into the class and just actually played DK for years. But in HFC, Frost, honestly, I don't think in HFC Frost was in the best place. Frost was kind of bland to play. Obviously, back then we kind of had options between the two-handed and the dual-wielding playstyle, but the whole rotation wasn't that great. And then with Legion, whenever they did the whole class retuning, I think that was the biggest change that was made in my memory, at least, to DK. Just retuning how Frost works. And then obviously the whole emergence of the Breath of Sindragosa build and how Frost went from these, like, you just have like 2 or 3 abilities that hits super hard on single target, to a class that it basically plays around Breath of Sindragosa now. Like, the whole Frost concept is just everything, it revolves around Breath of Sindragosa. And I think that's been a good change overall. Obviously, it has its ups and downs so far in this expansion. But I really think that they've been improving the class quite a bit, and I like the direction it's heading. Whenever the numbers aren't there, it feels a little unfortunate to play it, or underwhelming, it's probably a better word. But whenever your spec plays really nice, even if the numbers aren't quite there, you're probably going to stick to that spec. And at least one of the DK specs, in my opinion, like, every single tier has played quite well. Mm-hmm. It's been very few times where I felt like, wow, I just can't play this. And especially Frost tends to have its moments. If we look back to like Uldir, that was like the epitome of FrostDK, in my opinion. Or from the rates that I played it, Uldir was probably just the highest point FrostDK got to, and quite possibly that they will have in the next few tiers.
I'll put my cards on the table too. Like, out of all the Death Knights, because I've had one that I leveled back in the day, but Frost, every time I test for every expansion, and I always do that, the circle through all the different specs twice. I think I've had the most fun just testing and playing around with Frost, even though people think it's slow. And there's a meme. Let me just go over to this real quick. Just like,
So Uldir Frost was the epitome in the way that you felt like your spec mattered, even though the playstyle wasn't the greatest. Like, between Breath of Sindragosa, you were just AFKing technically. But when you did hit your buttons, you had those moments where you just completely popped off.
Right.
And I love having that in a spec.
Okay. So to wrap that up, before we move on to the other guests and what they think, are there any pieces of the past that you would like to see returned, or anything right now that you would like to see on the chopping block and removed?
Am I starting here again?
Yeah, it's you. It's you. Just wrap this up with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, for spells returned, obviously miss Dark Sim, miss Mass Grip, miss AMZ. But I feel like if they put AMZ back, it might be a little bit too strong for raiding. They'd need to tune it a little bit. But if they brought it back, we'd basically have a guaranteed raid spot. So, yeah.
I like the sound of that.
I mean, raid spot based on interesting class or spec-based utility has always been a lot more that people, I think, have enjoyed. Because right now we live in this realm of required raid buffs and debuffs that I think many people are rather turned off to. Especially going from Legion with none of that to then 5 to 6 of them arguably right now in BFA. So you gotta have the priest and the warrior and the mage and the demon hunter and the monk and potentially also the warlock because health stones, because you can have a health stone and a health potion now. Like, come on. But,
especially in a meta where you try to underheal a lot of bosses,
sure,
like at the top end.
Yeah.
AMZ would just be absolutely nuts.
Yeah. But all right, Chewy, how about you? What do you think of the dev journey of the Frost Death Knight or the Death Knight overall from your experience? Do you agree with what Hyper said?
Okay.
Or you gotta slap him around a little bit?
Well, for me, it's completely like it depends on the spec. For example, Frost, I think, is generally gotten better. It had a very long dip in the start BFA where I think it just was horrific. Like, obviously, it was really powerful in Aldir, but to play it was just horrendous. So bad that I rerolled and then quit.
No.
But
wow.
but generally, I think it's improved. Like, especially in 7.0, I thought it got really quite good. And then right now, it's pretty good as well. If you look at Unholy, for example, you said DK in general. I think Unholy's gotten worse for sure. Blood, I've not really dabbled in Blood that much, but I think I sort of in the same boat as Unholy. But Frost, I mean, for me, the baseline conceit of the rotations not really changed that much over the years, and it's always been kind of fun. Pretty simple, but it works, And Breath, I think, is, this is the controversial spell, but for me, it's like that's what makes FrostDK right now. It's like if I think FrostDK, I think Breath.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so do you have anything you want removed or returned? That's the follow-up to that. Removed or returned from the past or from the current iteration. For Frost specifically.
Frost specifically. Removed. Oh god. Well, maybe not removed, but I would like some talent parity because Breath has no compelling competition. Like, look at the talents on that row; they're just dreadful. Like Obliteration, especially, just caps you like crazy. It's like it completely breaks the spec. As for brought back, for Death Knight in general, runes for sure.
Individual, like Blood, Unholy, and Frost runes.
For sure. I mean, for Frost, it didn't really matter that much, but for the other two specs, definitely. For utility, Mass Grip, obviously, there's this problem that we have in the game where Blood just has the same utility, but better. And it makes no sense. Like, you look at a boss like Agramar, and people just brought 2 Blood DKs instead of a DPS DK.
Yep.
And then you have, for example, they have Gorefiend's baseline, but they also have nearly half the cooldown on Death. Why? I don't understand. There's so much utility that's been removed, which I would like back, There's like AMZ, Purgatory, Dark Sim, obviously, you said it's like a kind of a skill shot ability.
Yep.
And, Purge, which we almost got back in some form and then lost.
Yep. You could take it. You could take whatever the heck, because I mean, it's neat on Demon Hunter, but Havoc already has so much stuff anyway. And Vengeance has tons of tools in their kit. Well, I don't know why they get that. And they gave us the raid buff. Like, whatever.
Like, I got the impression they wanted to give Death Knight something because they added a spell steal originally, and then they changed it to a purge, and then they just removed it. And I was like, yeah. I get the impression they think there's something missing, but they haven't gone through with it.
Yeah. All right. So you guys keep talking about Breath of Sindragosa. There's a separate topic for that after this one. But Bicep, from your side of things now, how has the dev journey been for the Death Knight? What are your takes on this?
I generally feel like I can't really remember how it was back then. It wasn't that long ago, but I'm like, I started Mr. Pandaria. It was like,
it's like 8 years ago.
Era. It was some time ago, yeah. I used to play where, you know, Obliterate dealt like 50% of your damage, and the whole spec was all about spending your killing machine procs on Obliterate. And, you know, the baseline Frost at the moment is like very similar. You got the same spells, everything works almost the same, except that killing machine can now only be used on Obliterate, and that is kind of like a big deal because then you don't need really to care in your rotation. The whole thing back then was that, you know, you have to be reactionary. So there's a KM proc, you have to use it on Obliterate, and you need to be ready for that, and that kind of, you know, kept you on your toes. So now, when that removed, you know, without breath, you know, the rotation kind of like sleeper mode because there's no complexity.
Right.
And for me, like, I really like breath because that's where you add the complexity in the rotation. It was the same thing when you had Dark Arbiter for Unholy and Antris. Like, I love to look at a spell and be like, okay, how do I optimize this? And with breath, there are quite a lot of things you can do to optimize it. Some people say, you know, you spam Obliterate. That's not entirely true. And like, I like that. When it comes to the dev journey, as I said, I don't think a lot have changed. I'm quite unhappy they removed Mirror Ball because that was amazing. Even though I didn't personally play Frost and Legion, I know that Mirror Ball was amazing. And as playing as Unholy, I was always looking at Frost dudes and be like, no, that's cheating.
I was reminded about something from what Bicep said about something I think they should remove. Maybe not remove, but rework. Killing Machine. Why does that still exist? Like, it's like a non-proc. You know, it just happens. The only thing that makes it sort of, you know, you had the Frost Strike Obliterate choice before, choice in quotations. Now it's if you have Frost Scythe, it becomes you know, you press this instead. But without it, it's just there. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah. You don't really need to react it either. It's quite low RPM, so it's like, you know, it comes up. It's not like, oh, I need to hit Obliterate now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you know, leave it up for a couple seconds.
So
kind of. You can lose out procs, but
yeah, you guys have all brought up different little pieces in there. So I want to go back. I have something in both this section and the next one where what I've gathered when I do all of my spec testing, and certain specs get like this under the fingernails kind of feel where you're just like, is this really what they should have done? And Frost in particular, during the beta for BFA, from Legion to BFA, there was this time the devs were working on a different type of cooldown rotation for you guys. They moved cooldowns, they had changed how Pillar would work, and Empower Root Weapon and all this kind of stuff, right? They coagulated things differently, and they were basically trying to make you have one major cooldown, and then one as a talent you could add on, basically for like a single target additional, like layering of burst, that kind of thing, right? To make you pop off in those moments. But that didn't happen because there was this crazy, ridiculous, I would say, rather minority outcry that Blizzard like knee-jerk reacted to, because everyone was like, no, we need Pillar of Frost because strength and Sindragosa, and it was mostly for the Pad Thai Dragon. But do you like the weird, like, forced desynced cooldowns now where you basically just delay Pillar, I think, into your other, like, why? Why?
I don't know.
So, I think it was on...
It is a bit weird, like... Because you always hold breath, so why don't you just put it at 215?
I don't know.
This is a weird thing. There's this weird thing they've done in a BFA. We did it for Unholy. For example, for Unholy Frenzy is a 75-second cooldown, and then Apocalypse is a 90-second cooldown. You use them together most of the time anyway. So why? Like, just make it the same.
I don't get it.
And then Pillar of Frost is a 45-second cooldown. Everything else is 2 minutes. Like, why?
Yep. I don't get it.
As for you were talking about the consolidated cooldown and the beta, I actually have mixed feelings on this. First of all, one cooldown would be fine, but I would rather have Pillar of Frost in its current version than what they gave us, which was Empower Rune Weapon.
Right.
Because Empower Rune Weapon is just, it's like 1 rune and 5 runic power every 5 seconds and some haste, which isn't very compelling, honestly.
Yep.
There's a reason why Vision of Perfection Major is absolutely horrendous for FrostDK, and it's because Empower Rune Weapon is just completely, you know, bad as a cooldown. Just good because you got breath and you kind of like, you know,
it also
works well with breath
from your breath, like.
Oh yeah, with Vision. Vision of Perfection
is
just
such
like
a huge deal.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Vision of Perfection for FrostDK is it's just Empowered Rune Weapon, 35% duration. It's like 3 runes and 17 runic power, I think, which is barely better than Lucid Dreams Minor.
Yeah.
It's like,
There's just weird things there because now correct me if I'm wrong, because I talked about this for a long time when I was testing, and again I go back to what I hearken to at all like the hours and hours I put into with like Calrel and Chad or Kitsuki popping by and like we're bouncing ideas of each other and we're making feedback and we're sending things into the devs, right? I've done this for 3 expansions in a row now, soon to be 4. Pillar of Frost, the strength modifier for Frost Death Knight, does that impact like your damage and rotation more or less than just having runic power and runes to generate said runic power? Which actually impacts the class more? Because through all of my testing, it always felt that if you had more runes and runic power, the spec flowed. But if you just had a strength modifier, whoopee.
well,
So the thing with strength modifiers for Frost is that it synergizes with our other cooldowns. You have Cold Heart, which takes about 45 seconds to stack, so it lines up perfectly with Pillar.
Okay.
And the strength modifiers was also huge with Frostworm's Fury. Not as much anymore since we have more runes and we don't run it anymore. But in Uldir, the strength modifier on Frostworm's Fury, for example, was absolutely huge. So whenever you hit the Frostworm's Fury at the end of your pillar, when you were at peak strength,
Sure.
with like a Fallen Crusader proc, that was an absolute massive amount of strength. And you don't get that kind of interaction just from having extra runes and extra runic power.
yeah, that was they changed Pillar of Frost when they kind of backtracked a bit. They were like, so we don't want a flat strength modifier anymore. It now stacks with runes, which includes having Blast on Rhyme for what it's worth. And that I think really made it a much better cooldown.
Right.
And it synergizes with Breath, it synergizes with Gathering Storm, with Cold Heart, with Frostworm, It makes it much more interesting. The problem with Empowered Rune Weapon is it's like either the spec needs those runes or it doesn't.
Right.
Haste is just kind of there. The haste is just more actions because your JCD and your runes scale at the same pace, so you don't really reduce downtime with haste. So that's just kind of there. So I don't think Empowered Rune Weapon is very interesting. It works okay with Breath because it aligns and you're expelling more runes. So if you, for example, if you stop playing Breath of Sindragosa on live, Empowered Rune Weapon is a completely pointless cooldown. It doesn't sync up with anything. You don't need the runes, especially now that they've just buffed resources baseline.
Yep.
That feels horrible to press, honestly. I don't think it should exist without Breath.
Yeah.
That's the weird part about this. So, but the whole like theory crafting stuff, I'm sure you guys have done tons of this. I'm sure when we get back around to the 9.0 beta, there'll be more discussion and hopefully we get the feedback in, because that's the one thing that came up to me and that I still remember like a year later as one of those sticking points from all this testing I've done across all the different specs, is I just don't know why they did that, because I thought when they had changed things before the outcry, they were going in the right direction of trying to like focus on that like the strength and building blocks of either like that snapshotty, bursty, sort of teeter-totter that Frost was way more in the way, but then they totally backtracked it. So
it also, it transfers to PvP as well, because if you compare
Mm.
Pillar to Empowered Rune Weapon in PvP, there's no competition. Pillar's just the better.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just weird. It's just, we'll see. We'll see. It's the one that stuck with me. But yeah, so Chewy, here's the point. You're bringing this up. You get to start this discussion. So the Breath build versus anything else, as you just basically said, that if you're not playing Breath, then I guess what are you doing? So should Breath of Sindragosa be removed, reworked, baseline? My thought here that I had was that the past 3 expansions of going through all this stuff, Breath kind of just seems like it should just be like the rotational baseline AoE spender, whereas then Frost Strike should be the single target runic power spender, right? I don't know if that is something you guys have talked about before, but what if you built up your runic power and then like burped a rotational Breath of Sindragosa for some AoE damage, or if you don't need to do that, you just dumped on Frost Strikes. So where are you guys at with what you've figured out and how breath is keep evolving over time and the updates you had to it recently. Breath builds versus anything else. What do you have, Chewy?
Well, I definitely don't think they should remove it. As for if it should be rotational, like a an AoE frost, we kind of already have one of those. It's called Glacial Advance. It's a talent, but the problem with Glacial Advance, obviously, it's a bit, it's like a straight line. Maybe they can tweak how it works. But
This talent is so garbage.
yeah. The thing is, like, I would rather have, just rework that so it's not garbage. I would rather have that as the AoE spender than Breath. Breath works. Breath had its problems, but ultimately it's a talent that works, and they've kind of proven with the changes in 8.2 that you can make it work. The problem Breath had before was that it has a competing talent called Obliteration, where Obliteration vastly increases how many GCDs you press, basically, because it influxes you with runes. Whereas Breath kind of sucks resources out of the spec. And there's like a huge dichotomy between those two spells. But Breath now, in 8.2, gives you 2 runes, so you only have to pull basically runic power. You don't have to pull runes. And then it spits 2 runes back at you when it finishes, which honestly it sounds so simple, and it's kind of not very elegant, but it basically improves the spec tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as for reasons that Breath shouldn't be removed, I mean, it's like I don't know. I mean, maybe other people can help me with this, but for me, it's just that's what FrostDK is now.
Right.
And like, right. The other question was, should it be baseline? Okay, no. See, obviously, this is where I have to be objective, because for me, the current competing talents I don't think are very interesting, especially Ice Cap. So if you had more compelling competition, I think it would be an easier argument that it shouldn't be baseline.
Right.
The reason it shouldn't be baseline is because, well, look at the forums. So many people don't like it.
Right.
And the spec didn't have it for a year. So why should they be excluded? I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
And like we just said, they've proven that it can work as a talent. So
it's some input here, I think.
Yeah, no, Bicep, please go for it. Jump in.
So I think before 8.2, it was tricky. As Chewy said, you had Breath, which was a huge resource dump, and you had other ones which are like fine. And that's very tricky, because either the spec, if you increase resource of everything, Breath becomes fine, so other two just way out of line. If you decrease these two, Breath is way too little. So it wasn't really balanced that way. But nowadays, when Breath is kind of like, plus minus 0 when it comes to resources, I think there's a lot more to be done with other talents without absolutely wrecking the resource management. Because, just having Breath, it is not like before. You will be fine with resources, and then there will be much more playroom with the other ones. Like, I feel like Breath has a niche, and it should be, on-demand AoE burst. Okay? I don't think that should be competing with something that is pure single target. That does not make sense. It's like, picking... It's kind of like for Unholy, when you got Unholy Frenzy and you got Gargle. Unholy Frenzy and Gargle are pretty similar in single targets. But Unholy Frenzy works in AoE. So why should you ever pick Gargle? Like, there's no reason at all. Same thing kind of happen with Breath, since Breath is also best on pure single target. It just gets always picked because it's better in every single situation. I would like to see some final talents which are situationally better. You got something which, for a boss that is pure single target, that is the go-to one. Right. You got a boss where you got a couple ads, you pick Breath because that's amazing when you got a couple of cleaves. You got another boss which is just AoE, or you got a cancer fight, then you can have a first talent for that. I like it when you get situational choice in the talents that makes you, pick and choose depending on situation.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why I think Breath should be baseline, because I wanted that as a choice for the, first the AoE CD.
Yeah. Have it. Hyper, you have your brain's bubbling over. What do you got?
Yeah. I mean, so my take on it is that Blizzard really needs to pick a direction for FrostDK and just stick with it. We've seen this over the past, where they didn't know if they wanted to make Breath, just like the whole spec revolve around Breath, or if they wanted to have different options. And with this most recent patch where they changed the way breath works a little bit, I feel like they're moving in the direction where they want the spec to revolve around breath.
Yeah.
So breath should not be removed. Like there's no way. Should it be made baseline? Not in its current form. In its current form, I think it'd be a little too strong because you essentially would just get another tier 100 talent that they would introduce. But if they were to change breath a little bit, make it either something like Bone Storm, where it just consumes a flat amount of runic power, or a toggle ability, or something along those lines, then they can make it baseline. But that again just brings a whole other set of problems with it.
I think it would be interesting if they took breath and then the tier 100 talent was 3 different versions of breath.
Yeah, that would be
current version. You got the Bone Storm version. You got a trip.
See, this is where I start to get scared. Like you were talking about, it's like an AOE RP spender, which I think should exist and does exist, but the current version I don't think is very good for a few reasons. But like we can talk.
Yeah. And this is again with a world where glacial advance is not a thing. Like right now, it's never been a thing. They need to rework that if they want glacial advance to be a thing. Right now, we don't have an RP spender that's baseline.
Yeah,
right. That's a problem that's facing Unholy as well. But for Ref, like the idea of it becoming like Bone Storm, I'm like, please, like Bone Storm, I don't think is very cool. Like it's just an RP dump, you know. It's you press it and it's gone.
Yeah.
The whole point of Breath and what makes Breath fun is that it's an ongoing thing, you know. It's like a void form for Shadow Priest. It's like that is it's like it's like a reactionary cooldown. It's like how long can I make this go?
Yeah, well that's
one thing I would
Oh, go ahead. I was
gonna say one thing I would say is that the version that we had in Nighthold, which was incredibly fun, but it was way too long. You know, you had like 2-minute breaths. That's not sustainable in a raid fight.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
how long does breath last now?
It's around 30 seconds, I would say. But, you know, it depends on your race and some essences and stuff. But it's 20-40, I would say, is the range that it can get.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, it can get longer.
Nighthold breath was way too long. Whenever you got one mechanic on you that you couldn't cheese in some way and you had to move out of melee, your damage was just shot. Uldir breath was, I think, a little too short. There was not too much room for optimization. Right now, breath is kind of in the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about last thing I had on this one here is all this talk about Breath of Sindragosa and the Frost Death Knight situation and what it excels at for the pure DPS specs that are out there. Obviously, Mage, Hunter, Rogue, and Warlock. All they have is 3 DPS specs. That's all they do. And there's always going to be a hierarchy where one is always like, and the other 2 are going to be way better normally. I think I was being told that the Warlock buff coming for Destruction brings all 3 a lot closer together. Because the buff to 5%, again, going back to what we said at the beginning of the show, 5% to some is not the same as 5% to others. The 5% to Destruction is actually a bit more than that, due to how Destruction scales. So it's bringing those in more in line. Mages started out this expansion all really close together. Now Fire and Frost are just flying way ahead of Arcane. But on Holy and Frost, when do you choose which one to use? Do you just always sort of pick which one is just better numerically? Is there a realm of what encounters you would pick and choose for? Is it just based on what you have available for your Azerite? Or do you just pick one that you just enjoy more and you play better than the other? I don't know if either of you have a situation where you're going back and forth. I know, Hyper, you said you're kind of bouncing between, or you're playing Unholy right now, but what are your thoughts on that?
Right now, since both specs are basically, well, it kind of depends on how far you are into Mythic at this point.
Okay.
My take on it really is that for the first few bosses, if you have better Unholy gear, you should play Unholy. For the later bosses, even if your Unholy gear is a little bit better, you're probably better off playing Frost. The only exception to this would be the Fish boss, where it really caters to 2-minute cooldowns, so there Frost is better in general. But since the 2 specs are so close to each other on single target, at this point, I'm pretty sure it just comes down to what are you better spec'd for, or what are you better geared for. Like for me, my Unholy sims a lot better than my Frost gear. And that's just the way it is.
Okay. Bicep, do you have anything you want to? Because I'm going to you after this for breaking down the Frost Death Knight and how to min-max it right now. But do you choose where you play Frost or where you play Unholy, or you just pick one and just stay with it? Like, do you just stay as a FrostDK the whole expansion, or your armory was Unholy when I booted it up today? So I didn't know you're bouncing back and forth too. Yeah.
I played a lot of Frost in all day, and then I kind of switched to Unholy. I tend to not switch a lot back and forth. I tend to play what I enjoy, and currently I enjoy playing Unholy, like specifically for Mythic Plus. Like I absolutely adore Unholy Mythic Plus, which is why I just play Unholy generally. So I'm not that
So
picking back and forth.
You like multi-target quadratic scaling AOE? I see.
Yeah. We could talk loads about Unholy, but that's for another time. But I generally love that playstyle. But for viability, I think they are close together, and I think for the absolute majority of people, they are close enough together that there's not really a choice based on performance in that way, and more about what you enjoy to play.
Right.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that I played Unholy and Nighthold. That says something. I play what I like.
Yes.
Insane.
Yeah.
Hey,
And I
Truly,
genuinely
man.
think that both specs are fine and they are really close together, and that's great because I like when people can make their personal choice and be like, I enjoy this better. I don't feel forced switching to the other one.
For me, it's
yeah,
fight design.
Chewy. Yeah.
I was gonna say for me, it depends on fight design for sure. Like, for example, if you think back to Crucible, which is 2-boss raid, I played Frost on Cabal and then Unholy on Unat.
Yep.
The reason for that was, well, Frost, because you had this we talked about earlier, Runic Barrier. That's one small thing, but it was like 2 targets the entire time and then 3 occasionally. For Breath, that's just insane. Unholy can do well in that kind of fight, but I think Frost just edged it out. Then for Unat, you had Unholy has 10-second AMS talent, and you have beams across the room, and you just completely immune them, and you got 10 seconds, and it aligns until the last phase. You can't Frost can't compete with that really from a utility point of view. And then you have, like he was Hyperion was saying for the raid currently. I would agree with him that Unholy is probably better for the early bosses, which are mostly single. With your gear, it depends on your gear really. But then you get to later bosses like Zilkul and Unholy where Breath Cleave really shines. Like on Azshara, there's multiple points in the fight where you're facing 2 targets, and Breath is just really strong for that sort of situation.
Okay.
I would caution people. This is a funny thing that always comes up a lot recently. I would caution people against looking at the stacked sim for Simcraft and being like, "Oh, Death Knight is trash."
Oh yeah.
You think back to old Deer. I think Frost Death Knight was the lowest simming spec in that tier, and we all know how that ended up. Fight design.
Yep, that's tough. The stack sims sometimes send the right information and other times get misconstrued rather heavily. So you have to be careful about that. And that's why even bringing up the Warcraft log stack earlier today, and I got to caveat the whole don't look at 99th, don't look at max, because those people are just cheesy loyal to the end right now. You can't look at that. You can look at fight to fight, don't look at the aggregate. It's all these little things you got to take into account, because people are always all Survival Hunter is so good. No one's running Survival Hunter. But if you're playing Survival, you're probably really good at it, and you're popping off with Survival specifically, and that's why there's so few parsers, but they're doing so well. So you gotta you gotta mold it, and you gotta think about it a little that way. But Bicep, patch 8.2, they're currently sitting in.
Yeah.
I've got your major minor combinations for the Frost Death Knight in the regards of raids and PvE oriented stuff right here. So what has changed with the combinations? And do you want to walk through, is there a pretty set hierarchy for how you're adding that extra layer of customization? We're about to get to 65 soon. At least people are going to start hitting 65 within the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So what are you guys seeing as the go-to, how to build Frost now? So
generally, it's Condensed Life Force Major, Lucid Minor, and then it's going to be Crucible Minor as the second one. Lucid Minor is just amazing for FrostDKs because we got quite a lot of downtime. It helps with our breaths, and you gain value from every single rune you get back from it, which is why if you look at Sims and all, the Minor is just amazing. And Condensed Life Force is just such a good call out. It's such a pity that it doesn't align with anything. And I think we have to
3
look at
minutes,
some sims there, because like, you know, sometimes it's going to be worth to hold breath to use weak and non-side force and the other way around. They don't benefit that much from each other, but it's just annoying that they don't align well, because it's the best single target choice. And then Crucible Mine is just good for single target. And then some people, you know, you can pick Meme Beam if you want to pad on ads.
Yeah.
And that happens on some bosses.
You do have
If you
that
want to
listed.
do some bosses, you want to have shorter cooldowns, like Mythic Azshara. I know that you run Blood of the Enemy. Makes you able to... You get 2 breaths in the final phase, you use Blood of the Enemy, both of them. That's more powerful than using 1 Condensed Life Force.
Mm.
And for Mythic Plus, I feel that's still not really decided yet if it's the Meme Beam or it's Blood of the Enemy, but those two are competing against each other. I think they're going to be pretty close, but I'm not sure which one wins out. Mythic Plus generally is really difficult because, like, you know, it's Fieldcraft a lot.
Right.
You can't really quantify it always because you got loads of different situations, you've got loads of different factors. You got this one is better, you know, it scales linearly. This one scales for your damage. I don't know. I don't know about Mythic Plus, but Cleanse Life for Major, Losing Minor, Crucible Minor. That's great.
They're all listed here as well in the Wowhead guide too. You can kind of go through and double check which ones are good or not. It's gonna be weird. Are all the I think all Wowhead guides? Are you guys gonna update for the new miner coming in here in the next couple of weeks too, to sort of give people an idea? Because that's the wonder I have: is you just like stack your next best, or will we see?
I got at the bottom. You can look at the best ones.
Yeah. But that's what I was wondering about. Like, what are we going to add when we have that third miner? And then, I don't know, are we going to get another miner slot in 8.3 or something? Like, how's this game going to keep going? We'll have to address that, of course, in the future.
I don't know.
Frost already has, like, the important ones in the first 2 slots. Your third one's just going to be some passive damage, whatever is best in some passive way. Just because of, like, Lucid Dream, I feel like was probably one of the best things to happen to Frost, outside of obviously the Breath of Sindragosa change. Because it really addressed the issue of, well, I'm just spending 30% of my time AFKing between Breath of Sindragosas. Or actually between Breath of Sindragosa is more like 50% of your time AFKing. So you just get this influx of resources that just makes the spec feel a lot nicer.
Yeah, you can look at the APM. We used to be at 35 and 8.1.5. We're now at 49.
It's a bit of a
and
jump.
That's like
pretty significant. I think we're above on all, or nearly.
It's like it's so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it for the main first chunk here. Do you guys have anything you wanted to add about essences or tag on? I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to bring up.
Do you guys have any input about the essences?
Yeah.
Mythic Plus?
For Mythic Plus, I think it's hard to say. You know, Beam and Blood of the Enemy are both good, like objectively, but I think it depends on like runs, like your specific keys and stuff like that.
Conflict and Strife is also a competitor.
Yeah, I mean that's really good for like 2 target. You were talking about Death Knight essences. I would say the 2 ones that I don't like are Vision of Perfection for Blood and Frost are just horrible.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think I can understand with Frost, because for Frost they're in like a situation where they don't have a good option. It's Empower Rune Weapon right now. The alternative is Pillar of Frost, which you can't do because Ice Cap exists, and you get into like it's just kind of hard to explain, but if you reduce the Pillar of Frost cooldown even more, it's just gonna become an overlapping nightmare of like strength buffs and stuff. It's completely insane. So there's a reason they didn't do that. But the current version is just not very fun. It's just random runes you don't need.
Yeah.
Random breaths ?
Randomly drain your runic power in every rotation.
That would be.
Oh, I proc breath at 20 runic power. So unlucky.
So it's like blah, it just ends.
Yep.
I mean, that'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty. I mean, it's weird which specs value, and that's the good part about how they designed these. There's obviously a hierarchy. Condensed Life Force definitely flew up there, but it's the raid essence, and tier 3 of it is really strong. So not everyone runs Condensed Life Force, but it's good that it is strong though, because if the raid essence came out and we got to tier 3, and we figured all that stuff out and saw that it was actually pretty poo-poo, then they would be hell to pay. They would be just, the forums would be a complete mess. They already are, but
Condense is actually really frustrating for Frost because it's a 3-minute cooldown. Our cooldowns are except they're 2 minutes only in. They're not actually 2 minutes. They're essentially 2 minutes and 15 because you hold breath and empowerment weapon for the next pillar, which is 15 seconds after they come off cooldown.
So weird.
And so depending on the fight, you either hold pillar for breath or you hold breath for pillar, and then you have this added factor where you have condensed, which is it's a complete mess.
We can get on about on users this patch. Ridiculously annoying. Hate it.
You don't like double unused meta?
Oh yeah. Yeah, both Death Knight specs have been playing double unused trinkets for the entire expansion, pretty much.
Yeah, at least the second one's not Grongs anymore.
Yeah.
Oh no. But all right,
it's an absolute pain.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But if you guys have, no, you're good. If you guys have questions for our guest today, then that is when you can do it right here after the break. But I'm going to jibber jab about a few different things here and let the guest step away if they need to get a drink or walk around for a moment, take a bio break. But yeah, don't talk about a basic quadratic formula in chat based on what we were talking about earlier. So if you have questions for the guests, then now will be the time to start dropping those in chat and we will wiggle those in. I got some canned FAQ questions that we'll go over here. But again, I had to do a huge shout out to those that are supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between, making this happen, seeing the slow evolution of the art and the graphics and moving things forward here. Again, the big intro is a huge undertaking, and we will be working on that more. But thank you to those that are supporting what I do here directly and getting that extra BTS stuff. You can follow along with the show notes. You get the new launched apparel every few months when we do launch a new one because you've already purchased it, essentially. And then, of course, you get extra podcasts. So if you want more of the show, then you can just hook that into there's an RSS feed on Patreon now, so you can just hook the audio-only version of the show from there, as well as the audio-only version of the show that goes on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music. And you can take that with you wherever you go if you want more of this conversation, if this is what you enjoy. But on top of that, at the top of the show and on last week's show, which was the Method World First interview, so if you haven't watched that yet, that's on YouTube, of course, and wherever else, we unveiled the next little final boss finally after a little bit of a hiatus because we were busy for a long time, and Fabelina is all over the place with making her own book and her comic and things, but we have another addition to the whole line of apparel there. We do have the Little Queen shirt that just came out. Of course, fully customizable with different colors and styles and cuts of shirts and things. But then if you want to look at any of the other ones she's done, you got the Arthas and you got the Illidan, Ragnaros and Anduin and Little Pupper Greymane and the Azerite Day shirt and Jaina and Kindi and Sylvanas and the Eridar twins. But really, it's all about this one right here. It's definitely all about the Little Queen Azshara. She's adorable. It's stupid. Her design is great, and I'm happy to have another design with her because it's been a little while. So if you want to support the show in a physical sense, then that is one way you can do so. But in a different sense, if you're looking at things for your bits and bobs and pieces and parts for your computers or your peripherals in that regard, if you haven't heard yet, after a long time of doing this and being very, very picky, I am super excited to be able to be part of the Corsair team. So I am partnered and sponsored by Corsair. Total hashtag shill mode due to the fact that I really like Corsair stuff and I've liked them before I even partnered with Corsair. But if you're looking for essentially anything, I'm doing a huge computer build still that I've been talking about for a handful of months, moving my room, getting to a new part of my house for like a different studio take. And the next PC I'm building is so much Corsair stuff, it's ridiculous. But if you're looking for anything in that regard for your next build, if you use the link down below on Twitch or, of course, on YouTube, you will directly support what I do here, as well as all the Elgato peripherals on that same. They don't only have the Stream Deck and green screens, okay? I know there's a lot of stuff on there that's very proprietary and looks very proprietary for broadcasters, but Stream Decks are also programmable for designers and web devs because you can just like code and macro board all this stuff. And I've heard like graphic designers using this for all the different crazy hotkeys in Photoshop or After Effects. You can put all those on your Stream Deck and you can control everything from there. But they have a whole lot more stuff there as well. Links are down below for both Corsair and Elgato stuff. I do not know how it works with Origin, because Corsair just partnered up with Origin as well. I'll have to wait and get more information about that. But those are ways to support what I do here and keep the show rolling forward. And as sort of a mid-show update, we have another spec show next Sunday. Not sure that it is totally yet. It might be Retribution Paladin. I'm unsure because some guests are going to be busy with MDI and working on that. That's what the weird place we're in right now with the MDI being running. But after that, though, I will be gone on another trip, which I cannot talk about just yet. I will be able to talk about soon. It may or may not be about what Mike is also being flown across to somewhere for, but more information on that. So the spec shows will be on some of a hiatus of a couple of weeks. I do believe I have on here that after the 18th, which is next Sunday, there'll be a break again, and then they should return on September the 8th. And if you were curious about the whole like classic potential, I am possibly going to do a classic show about like the world first Ragnaros or Onyxia, maybe, if I can get guests from those raid groups that do get that, just to talk about how classic is it. And then each cycle or each phase, I'm potentially going to do another one, like when we have the Blackwing Lair phase for Nefarian, do like a world first show for that. The same way I do with BFA, right? Or 9.0, wherever we go. But that's just to keep you in the loop. And that'll be fun, because it'll be like a lot more low-key show in that regard, based on the coverage for Classic versus coverage for the Race to World First. But we'll see. But so you know, that's what's happening in the future. But guests are back. Bicep, be good? Chewy?
Yeah, I'm back.
Hyperion? Ready to take some questions? Some rapid fire stuff?
Totally.
Bring back the rant bus. So the first thing I have up here that I've asked every show is, I have to harken back to Legion. Which artifact appearance is your favorite? Hyperion, what do you choose for your frosty swords?
I don't actually use the artifact appearances. I like swords that sheath on the back, and there's a very limited option. I wish they made more of those. But yeah, for Frost, I don't use artifact appearances.
I can hear the YouTube comments now. Well, Chewy, do you use the artifact appearance? In your pictures, you're not. You're using like that. What is that sword from? Like Burning Crusade or something? What is that sword?
That's the one that I prefer. It's the Phantom Blade, I think. I can't remember where it's from.
The heck?
Then you use it with the Christmas or the winter enchant. Looks super cool. As for artifact, I think my favorite one's probably the hidden one. I can't remember what it's called. Where they're like these obnoxiously giant swords.
Blades of the Fallen Prince. I'm at the transmog dude right now because I couldn't remember any of their names either.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna bring them up right now.
I think it's the hidden ones. They look pretty cool, and they match the transmog I'm using anyway.
Wait, it doesn't even say here. Okay, never mind.
It's hard to dig back up this huge old post. Let me see if I can, because there's a ton, obviously. Oh, here we go. We got there. You said the hidden one.
Yeah.
Which one was that? Is that the...
It's probably the fourth down.
It's the huge one. It has the little skull in the center, like floating.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like the Ashbringer a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Dark Rune Blade. This guy right here.
Oh, that was what it's called.
Those things are insane. They're like two-handers.
Well, that's the thing that I saw in chat, is that the base forms are just like kind of too tiny.
Yeah.
They're like needles. It looks so weird.
Yeah, but this is a big boy sword right here.
Yeah, those colors look wrong, but it's like there's like a blue color.
I used the Dark Rune Blade blue version.
Oh, this one right here that I landed on then, the blue and green kind of a thing. I would say it's a still image, so it's...
I think it's just blue in game, but...
It is simply, it's just blue. Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, so it looks kind of green in the capture.
Yeah, I think it's just using the default graph.
Yeah. I like the Class Order Hall campaign one. That one's in Hyperion's key art on his YouTube channel, I saw. The actual one looks like...
Yeah. They're kind of like a popsicle or something.
Well, no, it literally is. It's the base sword, the little needle inside, but it's like all frozen over.
Goes really well with that. My favorite transmog is probably the tier 19 from Nighthold. Like goes
the bony stuff?
It's the one with it's like the Lich King. It's like gold.
Yeah,
Classic DK transmog.
it's the same sword. It's just frozen. Yeah. But,
Okay.
well, so what sword are you using right now then, Hyperion? When you do Frost, what are you using?
Using a staff.
Right now, I'm using the Elite PvP transmog with let me check what this sword's actually called.
You have it all right now.
With the
if you're in game.
Notorious Gladiator Slicer. So I'm just whatever's newest, you know.
Ah.
Just flexing with that.
Just
Yeah. How about this is one that came up going into 9.0. There was this thought that Blizzard was going to rename some of the specs because you have Frost Mage and like Holy Paladin, Holy Priest, and then again Frost Mage, FrostDK. Do you think that like the precursor adjective should never like be the same for some of these specs? Like, should they all have their own name, right? Do you guys have any ideas what you brainstormed about what like Frost Death Knight like could be recalled if it wasn't just the element and Death Knight?
Yeah. You know, I honestly think that if they would change something, they would rename Frost Mage, right?
Oh, you think so? Oh, wow. Okay. I
don't think there's a word that better encompasses the spec. To be honest, like,
Yeah.
or I don't really know what else you would put. To be
No,
honest,
they just all need to be memes. It just needs to be Pet Dragon DK.
yeah.
Mini Lich Queen. King. Sorry.
What
Well.
do people say? Game of Thrones reference, like
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
dragon.
I didn't know if that one was one, but all they changed was outlaw from combat. That's all they did. They changed the rogue spec. That's it.
I guess Guardian as well.
Well,
it's just an
Feral
addition.
Druid, just an additional one, yeah. Yep. I'm not sure about that one. And are you guys, I know Bicep doesn't want to talk about this, but I know it has to be at least mentioned. We'll put it in the FAQ down here, of course. It always comes up. I actually think you gotta I thought Bicep was gonna walk away. Arthas uses a rune weapon that is a giant two-hander in Frostmourne. So why the Fluffernutter is FrostDK a dual-wield class?
Because Arthas is the pinnacle of Death Knight. He just masters all three, you know?
I think, yeah, that's true. But I mean, I have zero opinion on this. Like, I don't care either way. I think if, in that regard, I think it should just be a thing, like a cosmetic thing, because,
Oh,
you know, I don't think you should have this dual thing again, because it's just a balancing nightmare. Like, plus, the thing I always talk about is they always talk, like, some people who want two-handed Frost talk about the playstyle. I think the current playstyle is more like two-handed Frost than dual-wield Frost was, which is I find interesting. But honestly, if I just make it a cosmetic thing, like if you want to, I don't have a problem with.
I think one of the core issues this boils down to is that your abilities don't feel like they matter. If you look at the damage breakdown, there's too much stuff that doesn't deal enough damage. This is like specifically bad for Unholy, but also Frost in some regards. That when your abilities don't hit for much, it doesn't feel impactful in your rotation.
Yep.
And I think like that's the core issue. You can pop up the cosmetic ones, but people are still going to be annoyed that Obliterate doesn't deal enough damage. And I think it would actually be a good thing if your core abilities did more of the damage. Frost is like better, but Unholy specifically is like really bad.
Yeah, the breakdown is like Breath, Frost, Fever, Remorseless Winter, Auto attacks, and then Obliterate. Yeah.
Exactly.
The
That's only in recount though, because it counts main hand and then offhand, so if
Sure.
commanders do a bit higher. But generally, yeah, it is low, and I think it is too low for being one of your main abilities.
That was one of the things they changed again in BFA was that they brought up white damage for all melee because
that was really bad.
Like right-clicking on the boss is like half of your damage now. Like what?
Right behind the GCD change, that was the worst change they made, I think.
Actually, the white damage change actually had a really weird effect on Death Knight. Well, for Unholy, obviously, you have so many pets. It's like your damage is just completely unpet. But for Frost and Unholy,
Yeah.
But one of the weaknesses of the class is mobility. That's like, that's
Yeah.
just a thing. And if you have this thing where your white damages so much of your damage, it's just it makes that even worse.
It does.
And there's a big improvement they made to Death Knight in this expansion, which I really love, was Death's Advance, which is like knockback immunity, knockback immunity not tied to Pillar Frost, which is like really cool, and like would have been amazing on Kill Jaden, for example.
Oh yes.
But we still have the problem of we can't re-engage targets very easily, and when your melee damage is such a high portion of your damage, that's really annoying.
You mean it's annoying when a monk tank double rolls away then taunts
Oh
the
my
boss?
god,
and
speed
runs
taunt
faster
is
than
the
you?
most annoying thing in the game.
Oh.
You have to be so preemptive, like you have to be halfway between where the boss might end up, like all the time.
Yeah. That thing just nerfed melee. That's what happened. Melee just got worse because since you have to be stuck, like before, if you were away from the boss, you would still regenerate resources. That's fine for like DKs. I know it's not good for other classes, but for DKs, you're away from the boss, you will gain some runes and you're still generating resources.
Mm-hmm.
But now you lose a lot of damage as well.
Yeah.
We also have diseases that still tick, but the problem is we're not tuned as if we're out of melee.
Yeah. If you look at tuning, we're tuned bottom still, even if you were stuck to boss with glue. I don't like that change, mate.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up how your abilities don't feel like they're very impactful, because the next FAQ question I have is, do you think Obliterate should have a Frost and or Mastery scaling component?
No.
No? Oh.
I don't really mind either way, honestly, but I think there's a cool way you can implement that, and that's to put it on Obliteration. Because we have this problem in our final row. Well, not a problem, but we have this thing in our final row where obviously Breath is Frost. So that scales with your Master. It scales with everything, basically.
Yep.
Then you have Obliteration, which is obviously it's physical damage to obliterate, but also so there's no Mastery scaling in that talent. And also you have this problem where, apart from maybe extra rhyme during the CD, but like I don't know, that like it would be such a big improvement to that talent and improve mastery across the board.
Obliteration is also bad because you can't tune it. It's like on or off. You can't be like, hey, we're gonna make Obliteration 5% better. How do you do that?
It also dampens crit as well. Like obviously it has no interaction with mastery, but if you're getting forced killing machine procs, your crit's like,
Well, I think it's a good idea to be like, during Obliteration, your Obliterate either benefit from mastery or benefit from mastery to a specific degree. Because like it would be nice to have a tuning knob so they could actually tune the final talent row without having, you see those changes, the nerf a bit of Breath and then you buff Frost Strike. That's basically being like, okay, we're going to buff Obliteration and Ice Cap. But it's so annoying that you have to do it that way. It would be much better if you could just be like, okay, buff Obliteration by 5%.
Yeah,
because they can't do that.
What do you think if they made it half physical, half mastery, or half Frost? I mean,
I don't really mind. My problem with it is that I don't mind what they do with it, honestly.
That's like unholy then.
Like, yeah, exactly, Scourge Strike. But the thing is, like, it's sort of, I feel like it's sort of like a red herring. Like, making Obliterate full mastery or full mastery scaling isn't going to suddenly fix the spec. For example, like, if you take away Benthic gear and essences, mastery is our strongest stat already. So if you make Obliterate scale of mastery, it's only going to make our stats even more, tilted.
Yeah, it's just it's always been that one thing that you see, that Obliterate is sort of one of the core baseline, because the killing machine procs, you get a killing machine, but Obliterate always crits big numbers, but then that number is awkwardly balanced because it's always going to do 25 to 35% less damage than your tooltips say because of PvE armor values. So your main ability awkwardly is not one of your strongest abilities, even though you're supposed to feel like really empowered by it.
That thing is also like Obliterate leads to Rhyme, which is Frost. You can't get Rhyme without Obliterate. So that's kind of like a secondary, wave that scales with Mastery in a sense. The other thing is, honestly, every expansion they add Obliterate Mastery scaling anyway. So I mean, it's probably gonna happen.
Yeah.
The Trinket in HFC or whatever, and then Thronebreaker as the artifact trait in a Legion.
I mean, how much damage does your Rhyme procced Howling Blast even do, though, in the overall?
Well, on its own, I don't think it's that much, but obviously it leads to everything else. It leads to Runic Power.
Single target.
Yeah,
the,
it reaches to your Frost Fever madness,
Frost
which is
Fever,
like your
etc.
second highest damage just happens. That's kind of like what that's a weird part about you talk about that because it's kind of very passive, right? But Fury Warrior and what I showed the Warcraft logs earlier, why Fury Warrior has suddenly flown way up is the change and essences involved, and we'll talk about Fury Warrior down the road when we get to their show. But the Bloodthirst Gushing Wound synergy now puts that as a higher priority. That dot, which you interact with, right? You roll that dot almost like your own like personal melee ignite. That dot is super important now. But Frost Fever just kind of like always exists, and it's a dot that you cast it and you put it on the target, but it's always there. So it's the difference in two abilities.
You
Yeah,
literally never think about it.
yeah.
You know, I think they nailed diseases when they had stuff like necrotic plague and that's like the you know that's like the Death Knight disease.
And you can extend them.
Yeah, and like stack it and stuff. But obviously that was an unholy thing mainly. I think the problem with Death Knight for me is like, especially on unholy, is if you pick certain traits, your passive damage makes up about 70% of your damage.
Right.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't like it.
It's funny when Bicep was talking about how a lot of their damage doesn't feel like, a lot of their passive stuff is where you get a lot of your damage sources, right? And that doesn't feel impactful for the actual, like the main buttons you hit. That rings true. You're talking to an enhancement main since Burning Crusade, where you had the problem of damage sources for a long time, where I don't think it's as egregious now as it used to be, but when we used to have like 30 plus damage sources, they all kind of do like trickle little bits of damage. So like our main stuff is like 7% of our kit, and we're like, it's my main button, and it contributes less than 10% of my damage. Like, what? It just feels
We're
weird.
getting to that stage as well.
Yeah, it feels a little weird.
It is like it is quite crucial for the feel for the spec that you like what you do feels impactful.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons I love Unholy Mythic Plus, because like what you do there truly is impactful. You know, the setup and all that. You set it up, then when you release all the wounds, you know, you feel that, and that's in a sense it's nice.
Oh, can you put that? Sorry, I have to check Discord on my phone. You guys can you put that link in?
Yeah,
put that in chat. That's your damage breakdown.
Damage breakdown.
I want to see that and bring that up full screen because that's hilarious. That is so enhancement shaman. It actually hurts me. Hold on, look
You
at
should
this.
look at Unholy, man. It's absolutely, it's even more.
And then you add on all the Benthic items too.
Yeah, this is the tier 24 profile, so that's
Okay.
Yeah, I can. I got to know this somewhere.
This is. So you're I mean, Breath of Sindragosa is obviously you play around with being 13% of your damage.
Look at this.
But I mean, if you add Obliterate together, that's still Obliterate
That's
ties Sindragosa,
Mhm.
essentially.
Okay, you need to bring up Unholy because that's
And
actually ridiculous.
With other talents, obviously, it's Obliterate's a much higher portion of.
And
Obviously, if you add them together,
Unholy.
obviously.
And also since we get more KM procs now than
Oh
we
my
did.
god! Yeah, what are even these pie slices? That doesn't even say what they are.
You know, guess how good. You look at that screenshot. Guess how good Master is for Unholy Singlet.
Is it
Very bad.
Very bad.
Like to
What?
stop the scale to master there, it's like
What is
very
this?
little.
I think it's one of the worst specs. You know, one worst scaling specs for Master is Unholy.
This is a
Yeah.
this is a quarter of your damage being done, and all these little slivers. I don't even know what the hell they are.
No one knows what they are. They just exist.
I don't know.
You have almost
I can
a
see
little
we
less
there,
than a
we got,
quarter in Frost.
Apocalypse, Claw, God Ripper, Margus, Frost Damage, you know, Storm of Eternal, Tidal Droplet, Soul Reaper, Claw, Azeroth Spike, Razor Coral,
Yeah.
Fury. It's like
It's
Sweeping Claw there.
a little
I don't
too
know.
much. A little too much.
Yeah.
That's actually funny because going back to Legion to BFA transition again, and a lot of this comes back because this spec alone and like the Death Knight, Unholy, and Frost have this effect when I was doing all the testing again. I had YouTube comments be like, how many times Bega talk about his beta testing? A lot, okay? It's how I know what the hell I'm talking about with these specs. But I was saying before that like the pruning or like the removing of artifacts and legendaries and things is I thought originally is that Blizzard was kind of scaling back all the nonsense that was happening in the game. But
Nope.
Nah.
Nope. So much that just
It's a big nope.
exists for DPS right now. I think a lot of casters don't see this. I think it's definitely more of a melee problem because,
Yeah.
like, if you look at a fire mage damage breakdown, how much damage is just ignite and pyroblast, like a huge chunk.
Most of your damages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Or like UA and corruption and agony for affliction warlocks, right? Like a chunk of your damage is going to be your main buttons you hit. But melee have so many freaking things that just exist for us.
I know. And you add stuff as well. Like, I know there's lots of like trinkets and essences. Like there's
Sure.
situations where you got 3 channel unused items, and you're like, where do I put that in my rotation?
Yeah.
You know, you could
Yeah.
have like the focusing areas. You can have the cyclotronic trinket, and then you got Razor Core on top of that, and you just so much other stuff that just gets mixed in there.
Yeah, and Razor Coral is like it's like a double unused trinket. You know, both uses like incur the trinket.
Yeah.
Which is it's
Unused
like
items
super.
have been insane this patch. Like
Yeah.
I'm just running out of keybinds.
Well,
Same.
at
Yeah,
least
same.
All the
Totally.
unused things.
it came from the Shambros Council, where a bunch of the guys at Theorycraft, a bunch of a few of the handful of specs, and mostly Shaman, like with Purge and Word Up and Rusa and I in a different Discord. It's almost like a meme that the trinkets now in the raid are good. We're like, raid trinkets are good
Yeah.
for the first time in a while. And it's funny how this one
That's
is
true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, like their Ink Pod and the Font of Power and Razor Coral and the first two like Blackwater Behemoth and Savara for casters, like the Leviathan's Lure. These are all like the Blizzard finally made just raid trinkets good. So we're not just farming our faces off hoping for Titanforge crap Mythic Plus.
They're pretty high
great.
maintenance for Frost as well. Like font, we use font and Ashbanes, which is like it's really high maintenance. You know, you use
Ooh,
font
yeah.
pre-pull and then you use Ashbanes on your next breath, but you
Yeah.
use font before that and they overlap. It's
Yeah.
like
So here's
You overlapping during the pool and like.
well, you gotta stand still and like, yeah, but here's a fun
Pop
question.
your
Actually.
fun pool timer gets extended.
Oh no, we have or you have your resto druid who's gonna cat weave on the pole that has to pre-prep and takes 13 seconds to actually do all their pre-prep stuff. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm ramping, and then wait, pause the pull timer. I'll wait 2 minutes. But here's a fun question: is there any chances for Death Knight overall to get some fun uses out of Control Undead right now in BFA?
if you're Frost,
Yeah.
or Blood, Unholy, no,
Well, right, because you can't control Undead as a because it removes your pet.
which is
I know.
nonsense. But
Yeah.
The only one I could
it
think
sucks.
of that's kind of fun is King's Rest.
yeah, there's
Other than that,
King's Rest can be like it's such a trap though. If you take the Beastmaster, and he got one ability which just shoots ads away, and that
You
can shoot
immediately
an ad
have to
into
toggle
another
that
pad.
off.
So you toggle that off, and then you got
immediately as soon as you control.
you got the frontal cone, and that can also pull. So it's like you have to pick it up, turn off both those ones, position it so it doesn't frontal cone to another pack, and then it's good.
Yeah.
It's actually quite fine for Unholy, like on single target if you allow it to stack up properly, which can be tricky because you need to like put it close to the boss. If it's too far away, it doesn't do it properly. But then it does like kind of the same damage as your ghoul. So if someone like says you have to pick something, you can pick that one and be like, okay, it's not a huge downgrade, at least.
there's also
Right.
the mobs in front of like Volcal and the Tazar. I can't remember what they're called, but the thing I think Control Undead sort of uses kind of a quasi hard CC where you remove it from a pack to kill later, so you make the pack easier.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. You just
That
have
is
to
like- that
hold
is
the
such
dude
like-
until the end of the key.
But that's also nice, yeah.
I wanted to go
Can
back.
be used in King's. But that was before though, when you want to skip briefing. It was actually useful in King's Rest.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
pick
okay.
that up and then you kill it at the end.
Okay, yeah. Good gracious, that's funny ones.
I wish they had more like mobs in raids though that you could control undead.
See,
Even if it was something that just like casted something that's just annoying to deal with for the raid, and you just control it.
This is one of the annoying
Just
things
to
I
remove
find
it from the equation.
for Frost and Unholy is like both the specs have at least one piece of their utility that just doesn't work on the spec. For Unholy, it's
Yeah.
Control Undead. For
Yeah.
Frost, it's Chains of Ice with Cold Art.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That's a funny one. So there was another question that came up, and I wanted to clarify. The Ashbane's Coral is off the GCD to my knowledge, but each use of it
Yes.
incurs the cooldown to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
20-second
Like Ashwing
cooldown.
Coral.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of the best trinkets they made.
Oh,
It is so nice because it's so versatile.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
you know,
love
it
it.
works for 1.5 minute CDs, it works for 2 minute CDs, it works for 3 minute CDs. Like, you know, you can pick and
works for
choose
8
kind of
minutes.
thing.
A little army.
And you
Yep.
also have to think a little bit about how
Yeah,
you use it. Not
exactly.
just fire and forget.
But then it's like, you know, oh, it's amazing with another passive, and then you add in like Azshara's Font of Power, and you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah. So this kind of came up earlier in the show again. Well, first off, I want to make sure I bring up the fact that DeGrain is posting and recopying and pasting about the huge divide on breath. We kind of went over it earlier, the whole like how people that either love it or hate it or flat out despise it kind of a thing. But I don't know if that has like that's kind of a hyperbolic answer, I guess. But the real question I want to ask, as we got it earlier today, is Ian recently did say that, and what kind of alludes to what they have ideas for in 9.0 is like the great unpruning. Are there any thoughts on things that should be across the board for Death Knight again? I think you're all going to agree that Gorfiends should be back on all 3
Yeah.
specs.
Top of the list for sure.
AMZ.
AMZ.
See, I'm kind of divided on AMZ. I think it should maybe exist for all specs, but it should not be based. Like it should be a talent for sure.
I think it's fine for
even
baseline.
if it was a talent, I'd be fine with it. If I had to give up my personal defensive, like if I have to give up Spell Eater to take AMZ, I would.
Oh.
That's for other things. I mean, honestly, there's not. It's all utility for me. Like, there's no. I guess you could say Soul Reapers and Execute. I would quite like that, but just because I don't really know why it's gone. I guess maybe Army for all specs, but with a caveat. I don't really like the current version of Army where it's an 8-minute cooldown. And it's a bit massive portion of your damage. That's just annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also so passive. Like, you don't interact with it anyway. You just press a button. That's it.
TOS Army was alright.
Yeah, that was nice. It gave you a buff. Also very nice with the shoulders where you could buff the army.
Yeah.
You kind of like, whenever you interact with an element in your DPS, you feel like it's like your DPS. Since now there's so much stuff we don't interact with, it doesn't feel like that's ours.
Right.
You know, when we had Dark Arbiter that dealt like a large chunk of our damage, you felt like that was your damage because you directly influenced it. It wasn't like you pressed Dark Arbiter and that was 20% of your damage like it is with armor now.
I think there's maybe some areas they could re-explore. I mean, obviously I said runes earlier, but I don't expect that to ever actually happen. But you know, we had presences before. I don't really think they should come back the same way they were, but I think you could do something really cool with that in theory. You know, maybe have like presence shifting be an actual thing.
Yeah.
I can imagine it.
I really like going into Bloodspec for defensives.
Like you go into, so you can imagine it. You know, Frost Presence was the resource regen one sort of. You could imagine shifting into Frost Presence before Breath, and then shifting back into something else. Like I think that could be cool in theory.
How about this one then? This is the funny one that I've brought up before and I've talked about and I've argued about and I went over this. But are Death Knights, this is a mobility question, as slow as the community thinks they are, or has it gotten way better in BFA? Because it used to be real slow. That's the whole like you and Ret Paladins had like one sprinty-ish movement speed cooldown and that was it. But
I think my answer is like the same as last time, but it comes down to raid design.
Oh, sure.
If the raid design is good for your, like if there's knockbacks now, for example, you immediately become better. Like your mobility is just better.
Oh yeah, because you can be immune to them.
Yeah. Whereas like in the past, I feel like a lot of the bosses just had debuffs they just had to run out, and almost every single boss had one of those. And now it's like less and less common where you just get a debuff and run it out. Or since you also run less melee, you typically are able to stick to the boss while dealing with the debuff. So I feel like mobility is not that big of an issue.
I would say
like not as big as people make it up to be anymore.
I don't think it's right. There's a difference between now and Legion. In Legion we had Wraithwalk baseline, which is, you know, it's an actual movement speed, whereas now we have movement immunity basically. So if you don't take Wraithwalk now, I think we're slower than we were in Legion, to be honest. But it's not slow enough to be like a hindrance unless you have Wraithwalk as an option. I think what's annoying to me is, say, in dungeons where you just fall behind because you don't have a movement speed really.
Yeah.
Whereas you used to have stuff like, you know, Unholy Presence.
Well,
We
first
used to have
off,
speed
like,
that.
Death's Advance is a micro sprint. Come on, Chew.
I mean, it's not very fast though. It's like 30% or something.
No, it's 30%.
It's
Okay. And you can still talent in the Wraithwalk, though.
I mean, I
Yeah.
love Death's Advance. I mean, I think there's
It
my
is a
two
great
favorite things.
thing,
The added Death Knight and Legion, or in BF, Death's Advance and Epidemic.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing as me going into Ghost Wolf, 30% speed, and I can't do anything in Ghost Wolf, but you can Death's Advance still do everything. All I can do is be a dog.
You can do the always though.
Wait, don't you get like Feral Lunge or something? Is that not a thing anymore?
Well, we could take
remember.
Feral Lunge. We don't. It's on the tier with
you
our
don't?
defensive now.
I thought
Unfortunately.
that's really smart.
Same.
Like, yeah, actually, same. Yeah.
No, actually,
Yeah.
same. That brings me over. Being a dog is awesome. This
I
chat.
think I only ever spec Wraithwalk. I never actually spec Wraithwalk for the sprint. I spec it for the route.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's way better.
The only time I really feel like I'm lacking mobility is on target swaps where the ads spawn like pretty far from the boss. That's
Oh,
just
yeah.
super annoying to deal with.
Monk speed taunt.
And then when I play my rogue or my DA, just like, wait, this is just a non-issue on actual classes that have mobility.
Yeah, other specs feel like absolute superheroes in comparison.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Like Grongs is such a good example. That was horrendous for a DK. You know, running back and forth to the ads. You're like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Jesus. I sat on the boss. I was the tank body because I could, it's too slow.
So, Bicep, to live up to your name, what gives you like the aw heck yeah flex moment when you're playing a Frost Death Knight?
It is in the niche, right? So I'm gonna go back to my older days, and it was just doing that insane AOE burst. You're popping up breath, you're popping up your pillar, you're stacking up those strength that you throw away a Frostburn's Fury, and that it just deals an insane amount of damage, and it just feels great.
So you went right to the Pad Thai Dragon. All right, not.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
surprised.
big numbers. That's what feels good, isn't it?
It's true.
Yeah. Have you played on Holy Mythic Plus? It feels great. Deal 1 million damage.
You mean AOE with my AOE? Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Probably should. I wouldn't know because I don't have it anymore.
Maybe you should try it.
I feel like we probably won't have it beyond this expansion, to be honest.
Epidemic might get nuked from orbit.
Big.
Well, Epidemic's actually capped. It's this
it's fine.
Bursting Swords, which is insane.
Oh, Bursting Swords.
Well, even Bursting Swords is capped, like in theory, but it's you can hit an infinite amount of targets with Indefinite Decay, so like
it scales forever.
It's a little strong.
Yeah.
Most stuff doesn't scale past 20 targets. Only a handful of abilities do.
Where do you have more than 20 targets now with Reaping gone?
Yeah, we don't. So
Islands.
Shut up! Islands. Look at this guy.
Maybe you can do it on the Waycrest for the fat boss.
If you pull the entire island, and then you just honestly you pop your Dark Transformation, you get wins and everything. Scourge Strike once, your game will literally lag and everything will die.
I'm sure it will. Yeah. I'm sure it will.
That doesn't really happen for Frost though, but Frost is like more, consistent, dealing high burst damage, that kind of thing. Doing those Frost swipes feels nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing I would say about my problem with Frost and Mythic Plus was you were talking about earlier about the AoE RP. I said about Glacial Advance. My problem with Glacial Advance is it has a cooldown. So it only really works.
Yeah.
We have this problem in AoE with Scythe where we just cap runic power and we don't care about it.
You just end up not spending runic power the entire dungeon.
Yeah, whereas if Glacial Advance was baseline and didn't have a cooldown, we wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the reason I don't think it should have a cooldown, it's like a 6-second cooldown scale with haste, so it's always 3 globals between Glacial Advances.
Yeah.
But if you don't have Frost Scythe, you obliterate, and then you're waiting for the cooldown, so you have to either Frost Strike or wait. So just remove the cooldown.
Yeah.
And the big issue is that Frostlight is 1 rune. So whenever you end up trying to spend runic power, you just rune cap.
Yeah.
You just have to choose.
Frost got some inherent resource issues that I feel like are very difficult to resolve. Because in different situations we might be starved versus having way too much to do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has to do with Frostlight costing 1 rune, making it very difficult to actually use anything else in AoE, as you said.
It's a couple of
Because
things.
Frost is built around using 2 runes per GCD when you use a rune.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't work when you use.
are you saying that frost sites should just take 2?
If we had a good runic power spender, then yes.
Yeah.
Did you?
Frostlight should spend.
It would be
use two.
much more balanced in AoE. But I think it's very difficult to make it cost 2 runes because then it might be better in single target. I don't know.
You have to think about.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that comes up in chat, and I was about to say the same thing, is that wouldn't it make sense then if you take Frostlight that just replaces Obliterate?
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that, but I don't know. I mean, Scythe is cool, but I really dislike the fact that we just ignore resources with multiple scenarios.
Right.
Like, if you're a resource bound spec, you shouldn't ignore them.
Yeah. That's the tough one. And then, what was I going to say? There was one other thing that I brought. Oh, did you guys during the beta ever play, because this is Hyper was talking about Glacial Advance. Did you ever experience the first form of Glacial Advance where it would stop on terrain?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
all the spikes
fuzz.
would happen at one place and do so much damage. So I was like,
Oh,
if
it did
this
more
goes
damage?
live, well, right. Because right now, like,
okay.
well, no, because right now you fire off Glacial Advance and like 1 or 2
Yeah.
spikes, depending on how big the mob's hitbox is, which is actually the weird part about it too. If the hitbox is larger, you get more hits. But the early version of it was that if you put it against a wall, each of the spikes would instance in front of the Death Knight and hit the target over and over and over and over and over again for the full cast. So I was like, okay, they're going to pull everything against walls now because it looks really broken. Obviously, it doesn't work that now, and now it goes like up walls or through things. But
I remember testing that in the Class Order Hall where the dummies are right next to the wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a thing for all of Legion as well. Like, it was just, get stuck on stuff. So you were talking about large hitboxes. That's a thing for a Frostworm as well. Where
Oh yeah, that's a
Frostworm
really
can
good
hit
point. We
twice
should talk
in
about that.
Oh, Sindragosa can hit. Really? I didn't know that.
You
Yes.
can multi-strike.
we had there was I think the first big example where
That's a
people started
bad
noticing-
word.
The first big example where people started noticing was on Guarm, where Guarm jumped, remember? So if you fired your dragon and hit where he landed, you hit twice.
But you can do it
Oh.
even further. Like, you can hit it like 5 times, I think is the record on Jade Fire Masters. Because they jump really fast. So if you time that properly, it's like it hits several times throughout. It's like, instead of getting 1 Frostworm, you get 6.
So you get rank 1 logs, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, is that?
99%.
Because I wonder if that's how the spell is probably coded in a way that it basically along the animation just drops like a flame strike circle. So if things move along the cast time, it doesn't just scan once and hit in a rectangle. It hits by multiple blobs of the spell. Ew.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm pretty sure all AoE projectiles work like that.
Yeah.
There was a bug in like 8.2 when it first came out where it was hitting single targets like many times, even when they were still. So I'm not sure if they might have changed it, but
I got a link there to a Frostworm cast that dealt. That's how it worked. I think that's our boy the Grain. We just replay that.
Yeah, no, I'm watching it right now because you can see the boss move, so it gets hit multiple times as it moves along the course of the That's so dumb.
It's actually ridiculous.
You can't see the DPS charts there, but basically after that, the DK was like, hey.
Yeah, go from 15th to 1st, like.
Yeah.
Oh, you pull an Archelaus then. Gotcha. Yeah. pulling the big narco. But that's about all we've got. We've had a couple other questions in the chat, of course, but if you have more of those, you can go hit up the Acarus Discord and poke these gents here, or give those YouTube comments to Hyperion, or go poke Biceps when he streams or on his Twitter. But I think that's about it for that. Do you guys have any soapbox end remarks, closing comments, or statements, or little nuggets of knowledge that you wish to leave the community with? Chewsday, sir, you first.
The community. Come to Acarus, I guess.
There you go.
Cool. As for Death Knight, I was just gonna say one thing I wish they would do is both specs are kind of trying to do the same thing right now, which is AoE. I'd rather like one was single target focused, honestly. Like Breath got changed to be, 100 to main and then 30 to everything else, whereas it used to be divided by your targets. I don't know, just make them do something different rather than try to do the same thing. Because Unholy just wins when you get enough.
Yeah. Gotcha. Is that all you got? Anything else?
I don't know.
Okay.
What sort of thing?
That's just making sure. So maybe we're gonna leave. Maybe I'll put a moratorium on. It's the other part I put here. It's the open-ended part of the end of the show. You can take it as you will. But if you're good,
I'm good.
okay. Hyper, how about you?
I guess the biggest thing is just don't re-roll from DK if you're not like super top end. I feel like a lot of people end up like changing away because it's not meta. But DK is definitely viable like throughout. If you're mythic rating, even if you're cutting edge mythic rating, you can make DK work. You know, up to the almost very top.
Mhm.
So
World
that would
first.
be my biggest advice to people.
I'm with chat on this one. Shout out to Anime. Holy crap, the new episode of Demon Slayer was real good.
I think that's a meme for Icarus. Frost chat versus considered anime.
No, I'll take the real thing. Can I get some IIIs in chat, please? I even have one. Let me hold on. I have to do this. There we go.
It's not turned on.
Little bit of that. No, I have my friends. No, it's not. I like the. I don't have the better Twitch TV on right now. Yeah, I have my friends emote. That's basically the same thing. I like it. All right, Bicep, take us out.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to end with? Any shout outs, moratoriums, nuggets?
Nuggets. I felt like we could have discussed the free Frost Strike at the end of Breath. I think that's like my favorite theory crafting bit of Frost.
Oh,
But do we have time?
no, we do not. We can move it to the after show. That can be for
Okay,
patrons.
let's put that in the after show. Basically,
Yeah.
you can get free Frost Strike at the end of Breath.
Free Frost. I'm writing this down. Frost Strike at the end of Breath of Cindy. Actual what face? There we go. I'll put that down there for there.
Otherwise, I just want to reiterate the thing with shooting specs, listening to the community perception and all that. It is extremely important that you play what you enjoy to play and not what you feel forced to play. Because I feel like a lot of people, they forget that we play to enjoy ourselves. Like, it is extremely important that you actually like what you do and like the rotation and all that. And at least from my perspective, I have never been forced to reroll, or like I just say no. And I feel like that should be a thing more often, that, stand your ground, play what you enjoy, don't listen to what other people say. Nothing is trash, nothing is horrendous, nothing is OP, everything is fine. Almost.
Outlaw, what's a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Swedish word, everything is lagom, Anyway, just play what you enjoy. That's what I do.
Spoken like a true DK. Yeah. Accept the bench and be happy. Yikes! Wow. Yikes.
Actually benched. Wow.
All right, I'm slamming down this button. Oh my goodness. All right. Thank you for being here. Episode 193. Again, that was Bicep taking us out at the end there. You can follow him on Twitch at Bicepspump, but instead of an I, it's a 1. Did someone steal your name?
No, it was me, but I forgot the email address, so I can't use that.
Oh, that sounds like a DK thing.
Yeah, I stole my own name.
Wow, you.
That's impressive.
And chat brings up you can watch a lot of anime from the bench. I mean, hell, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. No, but Demon Slayer, by the way, though. But anyway, Chewsday as well. Go hit him up in Discord at Chewsday and check out all the FAQ sections they have therein. Are you cool with PMs for questions, Chew, or no?
I'm cool with it, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sometimes people are.
I get that all the time, so it's
if I'm busy, I'll just send you to Biceps or something.
Oh, okay. I sent him over to there. That sounds good to me. But thank you very much for being on the show today as well, sir. Even though, as I said earlier today, that chat didn't hear, but now I'll say he's the one off camera, but definitely the most handsome out of all of us today. Confirmed.
I just don't have a webcam.
There you go. Well, next show then. Let me get Chewsday a webcam.
There you go.
Then there's Hyperion. What? Bicep? What?
You can just send us a selfie.
Oh, fair enough.
I wouldn't mind.
Hyperion over on YouTube. He's got that Frost guide coming out next couple of days. Yeah?
Yep. Coming on Tuesday.
And then you already had the Unholy one online, right? We can talk about Unholy.
Yeah,
for a
it
bunch.
went up last week.
Yeah. So go check him out on
I'm saying
YouTube. Even all the
You guys can always hit me up in Discord.
yeah. Are you good with DMs and stuff too, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone is okay with the DMs if they have questions, but you can always ask them in the proper channels. Right? Do that. Check the pins. Is that still a thing?
Not a lot of the things, no. Check the facts.
Oh, check the FAQ.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the main thing.
Pins are so 2017.
Oh my god. That's true. That's true enough. All right, next week, I'm not entirely sure what show it is. I think we're going to look at Retribution Paladin if I can get that sorted. And then the show will be on a bit of a hiatus because I'll be gone on another trip that I can't talk about yet, but it might be involving other nerds, and Mike might also be there again. But also check out, if you missed the Race to World First coverage, on Method's YouTube channel, there's a whole bunch of awesome highlight clip videos that apparently I'm in a lot of them. I don't know. I guess I'm whatever. There's the 2 days of highlights and then like the best of casters. If you want to know what it's like to sleep in Mike's lap, then you can go check that out if you'd like. And when I get back, the live show should start back up again about September the 8th. But we'll have a show next Sunday and like a 2-week break. And then we'll be back at more live shows. If you're wondering about the Epic WoW Battles of History, I have no idea because the raid tiers just keep going in the live game in BFA, so we can't really take time off to do that. So I'll keep you updated, of course, on Twitter. You can follow the show down below. All the links are down there. Support what I do here. Fableating, we have a new shirt. Little queen. It's Azshara. She's super cute. I can't talk anymore. I'm done. We're out of here. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy farming mana pearls. But until next week, everybody. Bye. Wave bye. Everybody, use your dual wield hands. There you go.
Dual wield waving.
Yo, you only wave with one. You're playing on Holy right now anyway. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. That's the wrong button. That's the shirt. There we go. My, I can't freaking heck.